and I am the assistant to the superintendent at Western Wayne. I'm going to introduce you to the elementary team in a moment, but first let's get started with some housekeeping items. As you can see, this session will be recorded and posted on the Western Wayne website to accommodate parents and guardians who are unable to attend or simply need to reference information in the future. If you do not wish to be recorded, now is your chance to leave. Also, we would kindly ask that all parents and guardians mute their microphone for the duration of the presentation. This will prevent any feedback or distractions that may be happening in the background. If there is a need to clarify a question, the session moderator will request a participant unmute. So in a brief moment, the team will deliver a short presentation, and we ask that you please hold all questions until the presentation is over. At that time, parents and guardians will be invited to type general questions into the chat box in Google Meet. A moderator will read each question aloud, and administrators will have the opportunity to respond. Elementary plans for Evergreen and RD are very similar. However, it would be helpful if a parent or guardian would clarify which building their child attends when asking a question. And as a reminder, this evening, the team will address general reopening plans, and we would kindly ask that you refrain from asking personal questions. The administrative team welcomes the opportunity to further discuss student-specific questions or concerns that you may have at a later time. So we would ask that you contact your child's administrator to request an appointment. So let's get started. Let me introduce to you who is on the call. This evening we have our superintendent, Dr. Barrett, RDW principal, Mrs. Miller, Evergreen principal, Justin Pigeon, elementary assistant principal, Mrs. Fitzsimmons, and our principal of STEAM and moderator for this evening will be Miss Watson. So I would also like to thank our elementary level subcommittee for all of their hard work. Putting together a reopening plan as well as a health and safety plan has definitely been a challenge, but there is strength in numbers, and Dr. Barrett and I are extremely happy to see what this team has been able to accomplish. So I just want to say to those individuals that may be on this call or listening at a later time, thank you guys. We really couldn't have done this without you. So let's jump right into the survey. If you were unable to join us last Wednesday night, Dr. Barrett and I shared the data from our initial survey. And again, we would just like to say thank you to the 700 plus households who responded. During the data analysis of the open-ended questions, several themes emerged, and you'll see them on your screen listed. And what you told us was, when moving forward, you would like to see more live instruction for your children, and you would like it to become more structured. You also asked us to increase communication and also provide timely notifications due to schedule changes. Thirdly, you made it very clear that you would like attendance to be mandatory and that work would be graded, and it would not just be up to the individual student to decide if they were going to turn work in or not. And then finally, the fourth theme talked about technology. And there was a request for more devices to be available and for additional parental support. So I can tell you that the team moving forward, we heard what you said, and this information was used by the subcommittees in the creation of the learning paths. We presented these learning paths last Wednesday, and Mr. Pigeon will review those as well in the event that you did not hear that information. This information was also useful to help us further develop specific protocols, and those are some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight. I have to tell you that additional protocols and procedures will be put in place after we complete these presentations. A second survey will go out to families, and then we will use that information again to reevaluate the protocols and make the necessary changes. And then finally, this information will also be helpful in the creation or the offerings of professional development for our staff. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody. We did hear what you said. We are in the process of obtaining one-to-one devices for your children as well. So again, thank you for the initial survey information, and look forward for that second survey after both of these presentations have concluded. So at this time, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pigeon, who will talk about the pathway options.
Thank you, Dr. LaRosa. So as you see on the screen and as was presented at last week's work session on July 29th, we have some pathway options for your children, whatever would best suit your family, as we want to meet the needs of all of our students and families in the district. So on the screen, you will see a green phase, yellow phase, and red phase. With this, just want to make everybody aware that this does not coincide with the phase for the county. We are rolling with the phases that would best suit our district and working with Wayne Highlands and Wallenpaupack as well during this. Our goal is to get everybody back, and that would be in the green phase where we're on a regular schedule. So in the green phase, you would see that you have a choice of in-person instruction, which is our traditional learning. We have live learning at home through the Google platform, where that would be streamed from the student's classroom. Or we have our Western Wayne Cyber School, our virtual learning academy. Again, in the yellow phase, same idea with your three options, a hybrid schedule with alternating days. And then in the red phase, where school would be closed, we have the virtual instruction through Google platform, or again, the cyber program through Western Wayne Virtual Learning Academy. Just to be clear, we are asking that you choose one of these pathways to start once our educational declaration is sent out, which would be after our meetings with the parents in our board meeting on Wednesday night. So we're asking you to choose one and then reassess in 45 days. And we're asking this for quite a few reasons, as it would help us with transportation right now. So we're not changing schedules multiple times. Along with if we have students who want to go on the virtual learning academy, giving that a chance and making it come to fruition. This is our first year that we're opening up our cyber program at the elementary level. Our district has had it for the past 5 to 6 years at the middle high school level. But again, first year at the elementary level, and we want to offer and keep all of our students here, as we know it's better, and we know our program will be better at Western Wayne, having a Western Wayne teacher. So again, asking you to have choosing the three different pathways that would best suit your family. Next will be Mrs. Miller.
Thank you. Pre-kindergarten is a long-standing program here at Western Wayne and traditionally was run as a half-day program. This year, we wanted to run full-day programming to benefit the children with their education and provide a high level of safety for the children. And so student groups will be assigned to Monday, Wednesday, full day attendance in their respective school buildings. A different set will attend Tuesday, Thursday, again, full day in their respective building. And then Friday, children will attend Google Classroom platform. The district has worked very hard to acquire technology, and so we will be working with parents and children to assist them in using the technology to its fullest potential. Pre-kindergarten is planning to host a virtual open house so that students will have an opportunity to meet the teacher. And we will provide a PowerPoint presentation so that they can see a little bit of the school that they will be attending. We wanted to make you aware during the full day, students will have access to breakfast, lunch, and a snack. We want you to know that we will carefully plan our day with a mix of instruction, work, and play so that the students can sustain the full day, and that we do plan to take the children outside as often as possible. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Carrie Fitzsimmons, our assistant elementary principal, for attendance.
Hello. Attendance will be very crucial during this time, and it will be mandatory no matter what learning path you choose. So there'll be the traditional learning setting where students will be monitored in the setting in the classroom. The live learning from home, student attendance will be monitored by the teachers through the classroom live stream. Virtual Learning Academy, or our Western Wayne Elementary Cyber Program, will be, the attendance will be monitored, and the students must log into the system by the designated start time each day. We realize that we need to be flexible with attendance due to possible quarantines and things like that, student illness. We understand that there may be some challenges, but we have very high expectations for attendance as we need our students to be there in order to get the education piece. And I'm not sure, is Liz, or Mrs. Watson, are you next?
Returning to school is going to be shared by Mr. Pigeon and myself, Maria Miller. Okay. So for a long time, we have been working with the pandemic group and researching everything available from the CDC, PA Department of Health, and working with Wayne Memorial Health Systems to establish our plan. Our plans are very similar, as Dr. LaRosa had shared, but as you are well aware, with very different structured buildings and varied student populations, there are a few things that may be different. But our goal, regardless, is for that the students to feel comfortable in their school environment and enjoy the process of learning with their peers. Social distancing in the classroom, hallways, and cafeteria has been a huge undertaking. We have been around our buildings, removing furniture from the classrooms that may allow us to extend the space between desks. We have measured our hallways, walked our hallways. We have considered how we're going to have students moving from one location in the building to another location in the building. So we are going to be implementing some new procedures or protocols for the students. And in our cafeteria, we are working along with the food service department and our building and grounds department to provide as much spacing as possible, as well as insert some devices that would aid us in providing separation between the students. Face coverings, masks, and shields are required of students attending Western Wayne and the faculty and staff of Western Wayne. Face coverings or masks are the traditional masks that we see many people wearing at this time with the loops around the ears. If the student prefers a tie-on mask, that is acceptable. Shields, appropriately fitting shields that cover the entirety of the face coming below the mouth area are acceptable. Gators are not listed here, and many of you that enjoy outside sporting events will be familiar with this. For those not familiar, the best way I could describe that to you is a turtleneck without the shirt. And so that can be pulled up over the mouth and nose area, covering the important areas for safety. The face covering should be considered a part of the student's attire. In doing so, allow the student to help pick their face covering. It can represent who they are. Perhaps they like superheroes. Perhaps they like farming. It is okay as long as the face covering is appropriate for school. So think about when you would purchase t-shirts for your student. Follow the same general thoughts that you would have when you purchase a t-shirt. Cleaning and sanitizing. Rooms, hallways, cafeterias, gymnasiums will be cleaned and sanitized frequently. High-touch areas such as doorknobs will be cleaned and sanitized frequently. We will be cleaning the inside of our rooms, particularly the desktops, often. Please know that we will not allow the children to handle any of the cleaning and sanitizing products because that would not be safe for the children. We will be using only products that have been approved by either the CDC, PA Department of Health, or recommended by Wayne Memorial Health Systems. Ventilation and ionizers. We have been very fortunate that the district has replaced our ventilation systems in our schools within the past few years. And so we have the great opportunity to electronically or through technology open vents in our ventilation system and increase the amount of fresh air from outside entering into our classrooms. Our ventilation systems also have ionizers designed to purify the air. In addition to ventilation systems, we plan to open inside doors, appropriate windows, utilize fans to promote the exchange of fresh outside air with inside air. At this time, I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Pigeon from Evergreen.
Thank you. So the next bullet point will be signage, appropriate signage that our school nurses have worked with Wayne Memorial to have in our high traffic areas, reminding students and our staff members of washing their hands regularly, washing hands before they eat and after they eat, after recess time, or being at unified arts classes. So again, proper signage will be in all high traffic areas, in the office areas, and that goes along with the next bullet of staff and student hygiene. Again, recommendations of washing hands. At the elementary level, we will be using soap and water as we have soap and sinks in our classrooms. And again, in the laboratories are the big sinks where students can wash their hands at any given time. We will be staying away as much as possible from hand sanitizer at the elementary level, again, due to the chemicals and the student's skin. Transportation is a big part. We understand that. So at this point, our transportation department is working on rosters for buses and vans, and working with our district superintendent administration as well, hoping to have as many parents transport children as much as possible, if that's possible. We understand it's not always possible for that to happen, but on transportation, students will be wearing their face masks, face coverings, gaiters, shields, whatever it may be, and we'll have 2 students to a seat. We are hoping to have household families sit together, if that's possible, with 3 students to a seat, as some of our buses do that currently. Visitors will be restricted into the building. not proceeding past the office area unless, there's a very valid reason. Maybe attending a meeting, which we're hoping to do as many virtual meetings through instructional services as much as we can, or needing to see the nurse, but the nurse will be able to come to the front office and speak with parents and visitors as well. And then the last one would be parent drop off and pick up. And we really need to change our procedures with this so we don't have people congregating in certain areas. We understand that there may be an uptick in parent drop off and certainly parent pickup at the end of the day. So we may have to, and we know we have to, redo some traffic patterns on our premises. So we will get that information out to you as much as we can and as quickly as we can once we finalize all of our information here. And so like for certain at Evergreen, the front vestibule will be off limits. We'll be closing that down. So we're going to ask parents to stay in the parking lots outside the school building as long as possible, for instance, for pickup procedures. And on here we see schedules, understandably so that, households together in the yellow phase or in our hybrid schedule model. We're hoping not to get into this phase, but we want to keep households as much together for transportation purposes, for parent purposes, and then obviously we'll allow our school buildings to operate at a half capacity level. At this point in time, we would certainly open up to Ms. Watson to review some questions that you as parents and guardians would have and present to us.
Ms. Watson, could I jump in while you're getting some of those questions? There you are. While you're getting some of those questions together. And I just wanted to clarify for those of you who may not have had the opportunity to be present during last Wednesday or had the opportunity to view our larger presentation about the educational pathways. So with that, what we're talking about in green, and just as a reminder, these are not tied to the county level, okay? So when Western Wayne is talking about that we're in this green phase, what that means is we're good to go. We're good to invite your children into our buildings 5 days a week for that traditional learning path. If you as a parent decide that you're not quite comfortable with that and you would like to have your child participate in their classroom from your home, they would have the ability to log in through Google and participate use form. And then there's also still the other option if you would like to go through the virtual learning academy. Okay, so that's what green would look like, is we're good to go to welcome your kids into our building. If we decide to go to a yellow, and there could be a variety of reasons of why we have to do that, that would be the phase in which we would introduce our hybrid model. So we would have students come on alternating days, okay? And still with the traditional learning path. But again, if you decided in yellow you did not feel it was safe or you didn't feel comfortable allowing your child to come to school, even on those odd even days, we then have options for you as well. And finally, if we are told that we cannot have our schools open, it is just not safe, that's what we're calling the red. And that we would be delivering instruction 100% through the Google platform, or if your child had already committed to the cyber virtual learning academy, they would remain in that learning path. So the biggest thing is this team is not here to make the decision for your child. It is our thought that we would like to provide you with options, because we do understand that families feel differently about this, and we want you to feel comfortable with your child receiving the best education in whatever setting works best for you. I believe Mr. Pigeon touched on this, but I just want to reiterate it again. So what we would ask is that you take this information, you have a moment to digest it, perhaps go onto the website, check out the presentation from last Wednesday night. I would encourage you to look at the very brief YouTube video that was made through Wayne Memorial Hospital as well. Think about it, feel comfortable with it, And then we're going to ask you to complete the survey based on your comfort level. What we would like you to do is really try to focus on the first 45 days of school. We have no idea where this is going to go, and I'm going to be very honest with you. If we ever thought back in March we would be having these conversations tonight, I think that's a lie to admit that. So instead of thinking about the whole entire school year, what we're asking you to do is focus on those first 45 days of school. If you say, I don't want my kiddos to come back to the brick and mortar for the first 45, I'd like them to participate via the Google Classroom. That's great. We will make the necessary arrangements for that to happen. And if this does start to turn around and you do feel more comfortable allowing your child to come back into the building for the second marking period, it really will be a seamless transition because they will have attended the classroom virtually. It would just be a matter of them returning back to the brick and mortar. So again, we are not asking you to make a decision for the next 180 days, but we would ask that you consider for the first 45 days. So like I said, we're able to re-examine all those protocols to make sure that we are on track following all of the guidelines that have been issued, so that we can prepare our teachers so that they receive adequate professional development and they also feel comfortable with that as well. So sorry, Ms. Watson, I just wanted to jump in and clarify all of that, but I'll tag it back to you and you could share some questions.
Absolutely. I did just want to note that Dr. Barrett has asked me to share that the tentative school start date right now is September 8th. That is subject to board approval at this Wednesday night's board meeting. But he did ask that we share that we are looking at a September 8th start date to give everyone a little more time to be able to make a decision that you are comfortable with. So I guess we'll get started. My job's kind of easy. I just get to read the questions out loud. This is a question that is regarding virtual Google participation in a classroom. Will children be expected to be logged in for 7 hours a day in the class as a regular student, or just at certain times of the day for different classes? What happens if they cannot get logged in? I throw it to the team.
So following being on the Google platform, the student at home would be expected to participate in the setting following the stream as they would at school. They're just obviously sitting at home watching what's going on in the classroom, and that's following the schedule that the students in the building would be following at that point in time.
Thank you, Mr. Pigeon. Another parent kind of piggybacked off that question and saying, how will this work for parents who are essential workers and cannot be at home all day with their children?
I can try to help you here. One of the reasons that the district has decided to go one-to-one is that the children would have their laptop or iPad that could be used both in the school and at home. And we plan to embed lessons into our school days as early as possible in the school year so that students become tech experts with Google Classroom.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Question about not understanding the phases. Can I pick my child to stay home for the year and do all virtual if I want this? Or is there some choice that we vote on or that you vote on and decide for us?
So I'll tag that. So again, we are putting that back up to each individual family based on their comfort level. We're not asking you to make that decision for the entire year. What we're asking you is to at least give us 45 days for your comfort level. And if you feel at that time that that is not working for you or you would like to move to a different option, I would encourage you to contact building administrators. And I would ask that you maybe not wait till the 45th day to do that because there may be, we may have to do some additional planning to accommodate those requests. But I would say certainly within those first, 30 some days, start to really talk as a family. Is this the path that I would like to continue down? And if not, please reach out to that building administrator.
Thank you, Dr. LaRosa. Next question. So am I correct to believe children will be wearing their face coverings all day?
Mr. Pigeon and I both agree that the children do need an opportunity to remove that face mask. And so that's why we've been working on some different ways for the children to gather in locations like the cafeteria or at a Unified Arts or a recess. We're working on that, and we plan to give the children as many face mask breaks as safe for the children.
Mrs. Miller, if I could piggyback that as well. We are working in the classrooms to socially distance the students' desks as far, 6 feet apart as possible where it permits. And if some of those desks and classrooms can get to that 6 feet apart, obviously masks will not be required in those given areas and breaks more frequently in the classrooms.
A question that follows that, if students are properly socially distant, and I'm assuming that means 6 feet or greater, can they remove their face covering? And the answer to that is yes, they can. That also covers that question. Brenda Kaiser, I do see your question. It was kind of about being full-time working parents and having students participate in virtual. I think that was addressed, but if not, please do reach out to your building principal. If we choose live or cyber to start the school year, would we be able to choose in person as we feel comfortable? Again, after the 45-day period or vice versa, absolutely. What is the policy if our child has a fever not associated with COVID-19? Will they be required to get a test before returning? The answer to that is no, I believe.
Yeah, and what we would say, Jonathan, I think that was your question. So we are going to ask, we were actually working as a team today on this. There is going to be a screening tool that we are asking faculty, staff, students, everyone to go through the screening questionnaire prior to leaving your home each day. So if a child has a fever not associated with COVID, I would say let's do what we always do. And the policy would be to keep the students home until they are clear. If it is just a simple fever not related to COVID, a test will not be required.
Are you cohorting them differently or taking temperatures? I think cohorting means will the same group of students travel together or be in the same rooms together at the elementary level?
And at the elementary level, students do not change classrooms like they would at the middle high through departmentalization. So the students will be sticking together during that time unless a student with special needs has to push into the classroom based on their individualized learning plan. That'll be the only time where students interact.
Thank you.
As we typically would during the past couple school years, as we know it.
Thank you. A parent, Mr. Larson, did comment, we did reach our capacity of 250 participants in the meeting. So unfortunately, there may be individuals who are unable to be joining us right now, but just remember this is a recorded session. And I do encourage any questions that someone might have, please reach out to your building administrators. They'd be happy to answer your questions. If everyone is encouraged to drop off kids, will there be a modified drop off process because the parking lot is very full typically?
I'm going to assume this is from the Evergreen end. With we know the size of the parking lot, we are working as administration and through the district of identifying drop off times, pickup times to accommodate obviously the parents here, with the understanding that you may be dropping off at one of the elementary schools, going to the next campus, or vice versa.
I believe Mrs. Teschlog, that was a question that you had. So more information forthcoming about pickup times, drop off times, and how you'll be accommodated as a parent, a working parent, to drop off and pick up. Are you keeping them more separate to stop any outbreaks like there are in the summer camps that we've seen in the news, or will they still be in different rooms, different kids mixing with different staff, impossible to trace if someone gets it?
As Mr. Pigeon shared before, a homeroom will travel as a homeroom to those locations where we feel that we can socially distance appropriately. Now, in regards to something like lunch, we are going to have assigned seating in lunch, and students will be staying with their homeroom assignment at that time. Also to note, I can't speak for Evergreen. I'm sorry at this time, but I do believe Mr. Pigeon and I agreed on this. We are to meet this requirement on a rotating schedule, allowing a grade level to eat within their classrooms as opposed to everyone going to the cafeteria.
That is correct, Mrs. Miller.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller and Mr. Pigeon. If a child is ill or quarantined, can they still participate virtually live while they are at home? And the answer to that is yes. I see some nodding heads, so we'll say yes to that. This is an RDW parent. What will a regular student day look like? Will students be leaving their classrooms for specials?
Yes, absolutely. We are fortunate both at Evergreen and at RD Wilson to have very nice large libraries, music rooms, and gymnasiums. And so, yes, the children will be out and about in the building as their homeroom.
Would streaming include student faces and voices?
Sorry, Mrs. Miller, I beat you to it. Not student faces, but there is the possibility that student voices, yes.
If we decide to cyber school, do the work at our own pace and schedule, will special education services still be available?
Can that individual reach out to Jennifer DeNike, and she would be able to give you the very specific details of what that would look like. And that's for any parent or guardian that's on the phone. If you have a child who has an IEP, a 504 plan, or even a GIEP, we would ask that you reach out to instructional services to have a conversation. There is definitely more information to follow. And to any of those families, please know that you will receive a special survey, and you can look for that in the next couple days.
Dr. LaRosa, Ms. Watson, I just want to, I know there's a pacing part of that question, just so the parents who may have questions or guardians, that the Western Wayne Cyber Program is different from the virtual program of Google. The cyber program, as we sent out, Mrs. Miller and myself sent out a message last week with information. It is a self-paced program. The students work at their own pace per the curriculum. And there's a calendar that opens up so the students pace themselves as they're going through it. It's not that they're getting direct instruction from a Western Wayne teacher. They are getting the instruction from the computer, reaching out to Western Wayne teachers if they have a question per each assignment.
Thank you. How much distance will be between student desks, 6 feet or less?
So we are working to get to 6 feet, and I can specifically talk to speak to Evergreen that left to right, I can get 6 feet in between students, front to back, trying to get as close to 6 as possible, between 4 and 6, given on the grade level and classroom.
That is very similar for Robert D. Wilson.
Mr. Jeremy Edwards, I do believe your question was answered about being 6 feet apart and not being required to wear a mask when 6 or more feet apart. Since the pandemic has now become political to the extent that the president has threatened to withhold federal funding to schools that are closed, and Governor Wolf has stated that it would be up to school boards and administrators to determine when and if school will reopen, what type of assurance can you give us that sound medical science and not politics or political pressure will be the primary factor in determining what type of reopening should occur and when any closing should be?
Well, thank goodness I could read that because my audio skills were being tested. It's a great question. And I just want you to know, in the development of the health and safety plan, as well as the reopening plan, Dr. Barrett and I, along with the central office administrators from Wayne Highlands and Wallen Paulpack, met several times with the team at Wayne Memorial Hospital. I am not an expert in this by any means, so it was extremely important for us to gather that information based on science. And again, I would encourage, if you have not viewed the video on our website, please check it out.
Thank you, Dr. LaRosa. If I have a child at high school and elementary, how can I drop off one and then second if they start at the same time? Again, there are plans in the works to address those concerns. How will a teacher handle the live stream option of learning? Will they have to monitor the online students and the class?
There is a level of monitoring for the virtual student, the Google platform student, but it is also an opportunity for the student, as the teacher breaks students into groups, for the student learning from home to participate with peers in learning activities. And so it's not a necessary one-on-one interaction. It may be assessing the child from their work completion or notations made throughout a small group learning part of the lesson.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Question for Evergreen Pre-K. Will students need to be online live for the virtual instruction, or can they access it later in the evening?
So at this point right now, we are not recording our live stream from Google. So the student will have to be available online. However, we understand that a parent may be working on that Friday, and obviously being flexible with the attendance part of it as well. Just to clarify, there is no cyber program for pre-K. That's only K through 5 in the elementary school. It's something that the company we are working with doesn't offer at the pre-K level.
Thank you, Mr. Pigeon. Please clarify the first day of school, and if a child goes out of state, are they required to self-quarantine for 2 weeks?
That is part of our screening questionnaire. And yes, we would ask that a child self-quarantine for 2 weeks.
Thank you. Who makes the decision as to what phase Western Wayne will be in?
The administrative team, again, will continue to collaborate with those individuals at Wayne Memorial, and we will be making that decision based on where we are at as a county and our community, the positivity rates.
Thank you. Will there be a maximum number of students permitted in each classroom?
We have been very fortunate to date that we have been able to do a very nice job of distancing the desk spaces with the current number of students attending the classrooms. So I would hope that everyone feels comfortable that as we stand at this point, we have provided a great distance between the seating arrangements.
Mrs. Miller, Ms. Watson, if I could jump in there as well. I know that there were some questions raised to myself and Mrs. Fitzsimmons about the 25-person maximum in a room. However, that does not apply to school buildings, as PDE has released some information regarding that.
Thank you. We're back to a few questions, and I saw some popping up about how does the virtual learning, and I'm assuming that means the Google participation day look like for required logins? So again, will students be required to log in seven times a day or for 7 hours a day?
Lauren, I believe you're asking for the virtual instruction, which would be Google, would be like a typical day. The only difference is whether your child is sitting in the school building or they're sitting and participating via home.
Lauren, I'm sorry, Dr. LaRosa, I don't mean to interrupt you, but Lauren clarified she meant the cyber program and not the Google virtual.
Mr. Pigeon, did you want to respond to that? You did that before?
Yes, I will.
Never assume, that's what they say.
So with the virtual setting, the student will have to contact the teacher who is overseeing the virtual Western Wayne Virtual Learning Academy by sending a message on the platform. I'm logged in. That will be their attendance. And then obviously the teacher can monitor what they are doing by tracking a bar that shows their progression through each lesson and or subject area.
Thank you. Amanda Steinmetz, I do think that the question about transportation and drop-offs was answered already. If it's not, please reach out. Again, Amanda Tupakaka, I don't know if that's the right thing, I'm sorry to say, but I think your question was answered. Allison, you asked if there will be live streaming during in-person classrooms to the students at home. Will that take away from the students at home or the students at home? How will teachers split their attention between the two?
I believe this is something that we will be working on through professional development with Ms. Watson and the rest of the administrative team. But obviously, understandably so, there are questions that are going to arise. And I believe the teachers will be able to handle that appropriately with questions that may come up in the classroom, but also that question in the classroom or at home might help whatever setting you are in at that point in time.
Thank you. Is there a possibility of a drive-up, drop-off, pickup scenario rather than having to have the parent or guardians congregate or come in to sign to the building to sign to sign students in and out?
And that is something we are working on, I know, in all 4 buildings right now. And once we have some more clarification and more definitive plans, we will get that out via Blackboard Connect to all the parents.
Thank you. How often will students be given mask breaks?
I would say, go ahead, Mrs. Miller, but I would say generally speaking, that's going to vary.
Absolutely. It's going to vary on the student's schedule for the day. So just know that every opportunity that we can safely take a mask break, the children will have that opportunity to do so.
Thank you. Evergreen EI, is the scheduling the same as the pre-K schedule? I don't think so, but I do believe that earlier intervention will be in communication with families with their own specific information related to those programs. And if you're chomping at the bit for that, you could always reach out to the EI office and the staff would be happy to help you with that. If the school is in yellow, I can elect to bring my students to work and do their schooling from my work every day, like you would if the district was in red. So I think the question is, if the student's in yellow, can they still have the full virtual Google option, or do they have to come to school the 2 days that they would be assigned, or whatever the yellow looks like?
So, Mr. Bryden, honestly, if you choose the Google option for your child, regardless of whether we are in a green, yellow, or red, that would be a learning path that may work best for your family.
Thank you. Is there a virtual option for pre-K? We already answered that it is yes. There is no cyber option for pre-K, only a virtual Google Classroom option. If you have multiple children, one gets ill, do the others have to stay home?
Oh, Dr. LaRosa and I keep trying to answer the same.
Go for it. You can go first this time.
And maybe multiple parties will answer today. And you know, we're not physicians, and so we're not able to diagnose your students, but you know your children best. And so you need to be aware of maybe, especially when we come back to school, of allergies and what can happen to your student when they have allergies. And if a child becomes sick as a result of that, then the remaining students would not be required.
Thank you.
And I would, Ms. Watson, if I could just add one more thing. Also, if a family does not have a physician, or if your child is in need of a physician, I would strongly encourage you, again, to watch the video that Wayne Memorial posted to our website. It will provide you with additional community-based information. And there are individuals to help you navigate that process prior to the return to school.
Thank you. Evergreen, how would the special classes of children that get them, how would you get them work if they're refusing Google Classroom? So I'm guessing if students are refusing Google Classroom, how would you get them work?
That'll be up to the teacher to assign material through Google Classroom to those students who may be using the Google platform from home.
And if that had something to do with special education, I would encourage you to please reach out to Ms. DeNike, Director of Special Instructional Services. The first day of school, there are numerous rumors floating that school will not start until after Memorial Day. Again, there is a proposed start date after Memorial Day of the 8th of September, and that will be voted on by our school board of directors on Wednesday evening. So we can more definitively, firmly answer that question after Wednesday night. Will print consumable materials be purchased for all students? For example, Eureka math books rather than strictly online resources and workbooks?
And so in answer to that question, this year the district did purchase the digital program for Eureka Math and InSync as it is available for students K through 5. We heard that during the first round of Google Classroom that it was very frustrating for students and parents to open PDF documents, use those same documents, and then return them to classroom teachers. And so this new platform will allow for this to happen seamlessly. If there is a need for any kind of print document for a student to assist them in their learning, that is something that you are always welcome to contact a guidance counselor for, or a building principal to talk about how we can best help you. We do have available resources.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. I did miss this question. Is traditional learning all day, 5 days a week? That is correct. So a traditional learning in the green phase would be reporting to school full days for 5 days in the week. There is a question about parents needing to commit to Virtual Academy and how do we do that? Coming from Evergreen, there will be a survey sent out where you will declare for the first 45 days of what type of learning path your student will be participating in. And if the student does attend the Virtual Academy, whether it's the cyber school or the Google offering, they are still able to participate in any Western Wayne sponsored activities, participate in anything that's being offered. Any of those 3 pathways, the student will still remain a Western Wayne student, and there is a seamless transition. Asking about going virtual next year, can they come back to traditional? In any of those 3 pathways, the student is very easily able to transition. But again, we are asking that you stick to the declaration for the first 45 days. Is the board meeting open to the public? It absolutely is. It will be live streamed via YouTube, and the link will be posted on the Western Wayne website. How are teachers teaching both in person and online? Are students in the classroom sitting in front on a computer all day? I guess I can answer that because it's a computer question, but there would be a mix. So in terms of assignments that are being offered through, say, the new Eureka virtual online resources, students might be completing things using their one-to-one devices, but the class will be run with the addition and enhancement of the technology that's available, just as any other class would be run, during any other time, as much as possible, minus the social distancing and protocols. If we aren't comfortable with our children in the classroom being streamed into homes, do we have to choose online?
So I can answer that, and I would say that is why we have offered a variety of learning paths. So we would ask that each family take a look at the learning paths that are available and choose the one that is most comfortable to them.
Is the autism class available every day?
So I can take that one as well. Again, more information will follow from instructional services as well. And to the person who asked that, again, I would say give us a couple more days. Once that special education survey goes out, someone from that department will be in contact with additional information.
Thank you. Can students that are in either the virtual participation or live participation ask questions? Absolutely. Will temperatures be taken upon arrival to school? No, they will not be checked at the door. Instead of an iPad, will we be able to use a Kindle Fire? The students will all, with the intention of the opening, the opening of school, the district is planning on providing every student with a device, a school owned device that the student can use. So there wouldn't be any need to have to worry about an iPad versus a Kindle Fire. So that's a really exciting thing for the district. How do we get the laptops or Chromebooks for learning? They will be distributed as soon as they are ready, and they will be distributed to the students in school. If the students are not coming to the physical building, we will have some sort of protocol set up similar to the dissemination of technology from last spring when we transition so swiftly, eating in the cafeteria or the classroom.
So we are working on schedules in both buildings to allow the students the opportunity to eat in the classroom, depending on the day and the grade level, a rotating schedule, so that students, A, can be socially distanced, being in there safely and keeping students healthy. And again, on an alternating schedule based on the grade level and the day.
Thank you. What if we decide after 1 or 2 weeks that virtual learning isn't working for our child? Can we switch them to in-class learning? We are asking that you do commit for 45 days before changing. If there are any extenuating circumstances, our mantra has been flexibility and communication. So if you do find yourself in a position that you need to speak to someone about a pressing issue, please reach out to your building principal or instructional services. What about students that attend daycare?
I would ask for just a little bit more clarification on that. I'm not sure if the person could just add some additional information in the chat box or reach out to Mr. Pigeon or Mrs. Miller. I can tell you that the elementary team has been in contact with area daycare providers, and we want to be as transparent as possible. So we have been working with those individuals. Are you expecting them to be online? Sorry, I saw the comment come up. So are we expecting children to go to a daycare and be online all day? We have no authority over the daycare. So again, that is something that each family would have to think about prior to making their decision.
Thank you. The next question I love, what type of device are you planning on issuing so we can order our own protective cases or selling WW Pride gel protection covers? We're talking about 9-year-olds. The devices, I don't have the exact specs for the devices. Our technology department is working very hard on that, but it is a Dell product and it is a laptop device. With keyboarding and obviously with microphone and webcams. But I think that the idea of having some sort of WW Pride gear for sale or whatnot, I know there's some things in the works that we won't really talk too much about, but yes, we're all for that. And we understand that we're dealing with 9-year-olds that love their personalization. So thank you for that. How will we be notified if there is an exposure, and what is the protocol for when there is one? Classroom closure, school closure?
So I can talk briefly about what would happen if a child is in a classroom and is not feeling well. What we are going to require is that our teachers contact the nurse. The nurse would take that child into that room, would go through some of the screening questions. We do have an isolation room that will be ready to go in every single one of the buildings. And then we would follow through on that. We would ask that you take your child and reach out to your doctor as well, because like Mrs. Miller said, we are not physicians.
Thank you. Will kids be able to participate during the live stream, and how will that work? That is absolutely a yes, and we will be addressing that with our staff through professional development in order to kind of use best practice and troubleshoot how that best works. We have a lot of PD planned and time for addressing those concerns, but yes, all classroom members, whether virtual or in person, will be able to participate. Pre-K evergreen precautions related to recess. Will they wear masks, be encouraged to stay apart?
Obviously, we understand students need breaks and need to be outside as much as possible during the school day. We are taking necessary precautions during recess when we're still working on those currently during our building specific plans. But obviously encouraged to stay apart as much as possible with precautions, washing hands when they come back inside. Understand that when running around, you can't be wearing a mask at all times. So as long as we're maintaining that distance outside, masks will not be required during that recess time.
Thank you. In PA, are we going with a 3 feet social distance acceptable for elementary students, or are we working off of the 6-foot model? I believe we're working off of the 6 foot as much as possible and to every extent as possible. Anything less than 6 feet of distancing will require mask wearing. Anything that is greater than a 6 foot distance can be mask free. How do we know if it's COVID related without a test? I think that was a follow-up question about if there are symptoms, but I think that was addressed by Dr. LaRosa.
And Ms. Watson, if I could just say this as well, more information will be forthcoming when it comes to the screening questionnaire, as well as the isolation room and some of the policies and procedures that will happen if there is a child suspected of COVID.
Thank you. We have another question about notification. If a student or a student or a teacher in a classroom is diagnosed or tests positive for COVID, how can parents feel comfortable that they will be notified? What is the safety plan that's in place? It makes this parent uneasy. Not coming off as nasty at all, and please do not apologize. Lunches that was already addressed. Those are very logical concerns, and the CDC will be giving us I would imagine, pretty detailed guidance in terms of what to do. It's those decisions and protocols are in the hands of the health professionals, and we're glad that they are. So those things will be forthcoming and provided by the CDC.
Could I interrupt just for a minute? Could I just add a very important piece there? I'm not sure if we said it, but we are continually monitoring where the students are and have assigned seating in various areas throughout our building so that we are aware where our students have been, who has been near them. And so if unfortunately there ever was a confirmed case, as Ms. Watson said, we will be contacted by an outside source, and then we will assist in the process.
Thank you. If a student does need to be quarantined, they certainly can participate in their classes via Google Classroom, even if you elected to have your students be part of the brick and mortar. Face shields are absolutely acceptable. Temperatures are not being taken when students enter the building. Question about fevers and symptoms was answered. If a student tests positive, how will learning continue? Those things will be coming. Question regarding how this will be handled. I'm a single parent who works in an essential job position. The question regarding how this will be handled for rotation was not answered. Please advise how we are to afford daycare for our children when school is not available. I think that relates to the yellow phase if we were to go to a hybrid schedule.
I believe I'm reading it the same way. And what I would say to that parent is, listen, we do understand that families have to go back to work. So that's why we are offering different learning paths. It is our goal to reopen 5 days a week as long as it is in a safe manner. So if that's a conversation that you want to follow up with a building administrator or certainly myself, please feel free to follow up.
Thank you. RDW kindergarten, when will we know what phase our school will be in and the schedule we will be going by? We are planning on opening in the green phase. Again, that's according to our learning pathways and not the phases that are classifying COVID within the counties. Mrs. Miller, the schedule for RDW kindergarten?
It is a typical kindergarten day. Students will arrive either by bus or van or parent drop-off, go to their room. They will eat breakfast in their room, which is typical. They will have all of their traditional subjects, reading, math, and the social sciences, and have an opportunity to go out during the day for some of their specials in the larger areas. Kindergarten students will have turns to eat in the cafeteria, and they will be outside for recess.
Thank you. How are students that need to take a bus to school going to continue to go? Busing will be available. We have to look at the surveys to kind of assess who's coming to school, who's staying home, but busing will be available, and any student who would rely on busing would be able to be transported to school.
And there are safety procedures in place as well. We will ask that kids are masked. There will be, we're going to ask that there be 2 to a seat. Kids are going to load and go straight to the back. They're going to unload from the front. So there is a whole process and procedure that we are working on to make sure that your children are safe on district transportation. If you choose and would feel more comfortable to bring your child to the school, we've already talked about it, that there will be some flexibility in that. We understand that you may have children in multiple buildings, and it will take a little bit of time to get from one building to the other.
Thank you. I lost my spot. A question about homeroom. If a homeroom is traveling to go somewhere else, what happens to the kids that are joining virtually? That will all be covered in the professional development for our staff. But all specials teachers, if the students would be traveling to a special, they will be trained in virtually educating all students that are in the virtual program as well. So that will be something that we will address. If the students are on home classes, what is the lunch program going to be?
And I
believe that is something we'd have to work out with Mrs. Liptak, who's in charge of food service.
Thank you. Now with the classroom staying together and the teachers switching instead of the kids, what about the kids who have an IEP, RDW parent?
Could you repeat the question?
Absolutely. Now with the classroom staying together and teachers switching instead of the kids, what about the kids who have an IEP?
Again, I can jump in and address the special education portion of it. So when the students are returning to school, that is going to be an IEP team decision. So we recognize that the kiddos have not been in school, especially some of those kiddos with IEPs, they have not been in that learning environment. So it's going to require us to really take a look at what's going on and make the necessary updates to those documents. So I would say to that parent, stay tuned and more information to follow.
And also more information via completing Google Classroom with the child who has an IEP. That will be forthcoming. Same parent question. Is there more cleaning going on during the day and after the day?
Absolutely, there is. Our custodians are going to be walking through the buildings, addressing high-touch areas such as railings, doorknobs, frequently checking in on lavatories and cleaning. They will assist us in any need that we have within the building after a group of children has used a large area. And then in the evening, there is an established protocol for cleaning the buildings.
Thank you. We have a parent, Evergreen Pre-K, asking if they do not send their child to brick and mortar school, can they still learn on a device while in the classroom virtually? The answer to that is yes. Pre-K students are able to participate under those circumstances. There just is no self-guided cyber option for those students. Son is registered for pre-K at RDW. On Fridays, they attend a half a day online. Is that timed, or can they do the half day later in the day for working parents?
That is a conversation that Mr. Pigeon and I have been having most recently, and we are interested in being flexible with our families.
Thank you. Question about the available online resources that were given before the end of the school year, things like ABCYA, will they still be available again? The answer is yes. Even if you do choose to send your students to brick and mortar school, all of those resources will be available and accessible through the school devices that the kids will get. No temperatures at arrival. How many students can you fit if everyone is 6 feet apart? I think we already addressed that we're trying to find 6 feet apart in all directions to the greatest extent possible. If, I'm sorry, my login information is incorrect, but I would like to applaud those leading the call for being so open with questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Larson. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. Some very nice comments. We're very happy to be here with you all and spend time with you. Could you please?
Ms. Watson, could I jump in for 1 second
Sure.
to address questions coming up? Are we going to check temperatures upon arrival? Instead, what we're asking families to do is to complete that screening questionnaire. So when you're at home each morning, there's going to be just a handful of questions. We're going to ask you to be able to go through those. If you're answering yes to any of those, we're going to ask that you keep your kiddo at home that day and communicate that information to the building principals. Okay, so taking a temperature is just one indicator, but instead we'd like you to consider all of the signs or the symptoms prior to having your student either come to school with you, load onto a district van, or load onto a district bus. So that's why we're not doing that.
Thank you. We do have several questions that I think we covered already, but if not, if I skip them, please reach out about temperatures and things like that. Will there be a different attendance protocol for yellow phase, and then it's specific to a specific classroom? I would encourage you to reach out to instructional services for that specific question. But with the ever-changing climate that we are in, flexibility and communication is of utmost importance. And in terms of attendance, as Mrs. Fitzsimmons mentioned, flexibility and communication regarding issues, attendance and otherwise are, we greatly welcome the conversations about those. What is the current phase assessment? Again, we are hoping to return in the green phase of our learning pathways with the 3 options. Given the fact that sometimes things come out of the woodwork or fall from the sky, and those things will be communicated as they happen and if they happen. A question about third party running any of the virtual entities other than Google in Google Classroom. What has the effort looked like to create an organization in the lesson planning and the use of proper digital format for lesson exchanges? I do think that the question about running virtual entities other than Google, and I don't mean to go all tech nerd here, but Google does have what we call add-ons that are created by third parties. And our technology department has been extremely good about vetting those sources before they are added. Staff doesn't have the ability to add those add-ons from third parties without them being completely vetted by our tech department and monitored by our tech department. In terms of Google Classroom, an effort to create what you're saying of better virtual learning lesson plans, providing things that are digitally appropriate. Those are all things that our district is focusing on, and we will be addressing those things through quite a bit of professional development with our teaching staff as we get closer to the beginning of the year. Do they have to be on virtual at a certain time every day? The answer to that would be yes, for a check-in.
Yes.
And that would be at the start of school. My son's father lives in New York and he spends every other weekend with him. So will he be expected to self-quarantine each time he returns? I think that's an interesting question. And I think that maybe we could write your name down and have someone reach out to you specific to that situation. Would that be fair, Dr. LaRosa and team?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was going to urge the individual to contact whatever building your child attends. Yes.
Okay, multiple children, if we think we addressed that. What happens if someone tests positive? We did that. We answered the question about specials. Students who are doing virtual Google Classroom attendance will still virtually participate in their specials. That will be addressed with our staff. Any news on the early intervention program that is coming?
Yes, and if I could jump in, Mrs. Gregory is working right now to coordinate the services across the consortium for Western Wayne, Willem Paul Peck, and Wayne Highlands. She is eager to get this information out, and that will occur after our Wednesday night board meeting when she can officially start to share that information with you.
Thank you. What is Blackboard Connect? I strongly encourage everyone to, if you don't have an email address, a functioning email address and or a phone number, cell phone number on file under your child's name, I encourage you to call the building in which your children go to school and add those pieces of contact information. Blackboard Connect is a mass communication tool that our district uses. We send out email blasts. We did that with, say, the invitation for this evening's meeting. But if you're not getting those emails and or text messages and sometimes phone calls from our superintendent, Dr. Barrett, I encourage you to please call your building and make sure that your contact information is updated, current, and on file. The lunch program for Google Meet students, I think we answered that. Snow days handled with multiple learning styles available. I think it would be fair to say more to come when it comes to that. Definitely conversations that we're having, but not quite ready to commit to any one of those answers yet. If we choose to send our kids to school in person learning, they have to be in school every day. Yes, you have to send them every day if that's what you choose for the first 45 days. Another question about snow days. Protocols for students getting on the bus for Evergreen.
So we are asking, obviously, parents who are dropping their children off or riding district transportations to do the morning checklist in the morning, doing the quick symptom checks, and then riding a bus as they normally would, making sure they have a face covering or mask on and having assigned seats. Buses will be loaded from back to front, and then unload it when they get to the building from front to back, so we're not having students cross each other. But same procedures as we typically have done.
Thank you. We have a question about guaranteeing that children in the classroom will not be subjected to inappropriate situations occurring in a home setting during live streaming. All of those things will be addressed with our staff in terms of protocols of what to do if and when things should happen with the live streaming. I think we answered that question. It was a duplicate. Paper products such as workbook for Google Meet students, will they be receiving paper products or books, even though they're going to be joining virtually through Google Meet?
As
Go ahead.
as they would be distributed in the school building, such as for our ELA series, our math series, we went digital. However, we could provide those paper copies for that individual student if requested, along with social studies as well. What to provide those items for all those content areas.
Thank you. What will happen come flu season, considering COVID has extremely similar symptoms? I believe that's another CDC guideline and recommendation, something that is very prevalent on the minds of the CDC to help schools kind of figure out. If your student has a medical condition and the CDC recommends that they do not wear a mask, are they barred from the classroom? Absolutely not, but they will be required to maintain a 6-foot distance from the other members of the classroom as per social distancing guidelines.
And we're going to ask I'm not sure the parent that asked this question, we're going to then have a conversation. Is it a mask or is it a face shield? Or a gaiter, what would they feel the most comfortable wearing? But yes, we're going to ask that they wear some type of face covering.
If I can go back to the question regarding flu season versus COVID, directing back to the video on our district website where Dr. Cruz and I'm not recalling the other doctor's name, mentioned about flu versus COVID. You might have symptoms for a flu appear in 24 to 48 hours, as we typically know. COVID is going to take a bit longer. So a stuffy nose or a fever that lasts a day, obviously would break, is more along the lines of a flu symptom.
Thank you, Mr. Pigeon. Evergreen students, if they're eating lunch in the classroom, can they still get hot lunch? Yes.
So, yes. Yep, working with Mrs. Liptak at Food Service, and this would be for all the school buildings, and I know specifically speaking for Evergreen and RD, the students who would be getting a school lunch, the lunches would be delivered to the classroom where they typically would have to go get it and sit in the cafeteria on most normal years. This year, the food would be going to the classrooms, though. So yes, still available.
Thank you. Workbooks for children who are doing the Google option. How will they know what to use? Teachers will be posting assignments that have specifics about what worksheets are being used or pages or which stories to be read. And will the workbooks be sent home to children if you choose to keep them home? If it's something that their learning will be reliant on, and if it's something that the other students in the class, brick and mortar, will be receiving, I would imagine that there would be provisions to have them be sent home. Will it be possible to change from virtual to cyber and vice versa if it's not working? Again, we ask that you stick with 45 days, but please communicate any concerns that you have. If you already registered your child for pre-K and don't feel either option fits your child, are you required to still send them, or can virtual academy still be an option? Yes, it can be an option. So to reiterate the Eureka program question, does that mean in-school students will not receive physical workbooks?
They will have a digital device or digital resource on their one-to-one, on their device in front of them. We will be able to provide the necessary materials for those students as the teacher deems appropriate. I know some lessons you may not need an actual paper in front of you. Maybe it'll do it on your device. Other ones will be required, and as the teacher deems appropriate.
Thank you. As a parent of an Evergreen student, I see virtual learning is incorporated into all phases. How are the parents that are employed full-time that may not have an option for virtual learning due to childcare arrangement restrictions on personal electronic devices respond to the situation? What could be the recourse, and how can we assure our children will still receive an education?
The virtual learning path is just one option. If you felt comfortable having your child attend school face-to-face and the district was in a green phase, that could be another learning path for you. I would encourage you to reach out to the building administrator and have a conversation about what the options are.
Thank you. Are we currently in the green phase? We're planning to be on the green phase starting potentially on September 8th, but stay tuned. Those things are still pending. What is the policy on data collection if a student is taking the virtual pathway? I'm not exactly certain I understand that question.
My assumption on that would be through maybe assessments, and how would assessments be collected and used?
If not, if that is a special education question, I would encourage you to reach out to instructional services. If it's not, I would invite you to contact Mr. Pigeon.
Thank you. What does a virtual schedule look like for pre-K, and can we revisit, is it 5 days? So the virtual schedule for pre-K, we talked about it being 2 full days in person for the AM, 2 different full days in person for the PM, and then a half day virtual that will be provided through Google Classroom if you choose the brick and mortar school. Do schools have bandwidth to offer live streaming for classrooms all day? This was something that we discussed with technology, and we are prepared to give it our old college try. If we end up in the yellow phase with hybrid classes rotating days, will my children be on the same schedule even though they are in different schools? That is, the answer to that is yes. Are you expecting them to be online all day? Not necessarily, no. Is the after-school program still going to be available at Evergreen?
I don't know if that would be the LEAP program, which is the aftercare program, or if they're talking about Shine. And I'm in conversations with Dr. Barrett now and the individuals from Shine to work on this, but also ensure that we have a health and safety plan from them, along with proper protocols from that organization.
Thank you very much. Missed the beginning of the meeting. When do we tell the school which option we want to go with? There will be a survey sent out to all parents in the district where you can declare what you choose. Phase assessment is green as of this very moment. Will syllabi be distributed to the students at the beginning of the school year?
That is not something that we typically provide to the elementary student, but you have access to the Pennsylvania standards that we're teaching. And so throughout the course of the year, we are striving to meet the standards or eligible content designed by our state.
Thank you. Student or staff member develops positive COVID tests. That is something that is going to be directed by the CDC. Will parents be contacted after the first 45 days to reassess the current learning program? Yes, we don't know exactly what that will look like, but there will be communication regarding that. I think the person with the question COVID exposure meant what happens if a child or staff tests positive? How will the necessary parents be informed? That will be a protocol that will come from CDC. Can you explain the isolation room? Will my child be left by themselves?
So an isolation room is what the guidelines and requirements are coming out from CDC, the WHO, and obviously guidelines from Women Memorial Health Systems. They will not be left alone. As an area in the elementary schools that is in the nurse's office. In that room, if there's a positive test that comes out of that, or we get more positive information from the student that would be in there, would be sanitized, but they would always be kept under supervision by an adult in the elementary setting and in the middle high school setting as well.
Thank you, Mr. Pigeon. Someone commented a HIPAA violation. Yes, HIPAA rules and regulations are a part of what the CDC will plan in terms of notification. Are staff wearing masks all day? Yes, they are.
Much like the students, yes, we will be requiring staff and faculty to have a face covering. Yes.
Children, yes, will have their access to their prescriptions, their inhalers for seasonal allergies and asthma. Privacy policy for data collection. Again, I'm not quite sure what data, what that data looks like. If it's special ed data, then you would reach out to instructional services. Will the students be able to carry the inhalers all day, I believe, is the question. That would be something that
is a conversation with our nurses at the elementary level.
Mhm.
Yep. We're talking about contract tracing, no HIPAA laws. Again, those are all CDC things. Do we need to use school-owned devices?
Yes, it is. Yes, you do need to use the school device. It will be set up to run appropriately with all of the programs that the district will be using.
Yes. What time is drop off for RDW kindergarten?
Okay, so I can't answer that question today. After you make your declaration, part of that will be to let us know if you plan to transport your child. We'll take a look at the number of children that will be dropped off. And so we'll be in contact with families to provide more accurate information once all of that is in. But we will definitely provide enough time for you to travel to another school building and vice versa at the end of the school day.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. If we do Google Classroom, will the child also have to attend in-person learning? The answer is no. It's either full in-home virtual or it's full in-person learning. Is the yellow virtual schedule odd, even, or AABB with a Wednesday break? It would be helpful to have the same schedule each day of the week so we can plan and care for work. Like we can plan.
Yeah, at the current moment, it will be on an alternating schedule. So it would be, if you are student A, you would attend in person. The next day you would attend virtual. On the following day, which would be Wednesday, you would be. So it would be back and forth.
Thank you, Dr. LaRosa. Busing schedule, busing, social distancing, temp checks, cleaning. I think we covered all of those items. Again, pre-K will be 2 days, full days for AM in person, 2 full days for PM in person, and a half day virtual on Fridays, unless your student opts to be full virtual through Google. How will bus drivers monitor students being sure that they keep their masks on during their ride to and from school?
Obviously, we understand the bus driver's job is to get our students to school safely, and through conversations with the students administratively, encouraging to make sure that masks are kept on at all times. We're not saying that this is the sole job of the bus drivers or the van drivers to get them to school, but again, administratively, we will be talking with the students on that.
Thank you, Mr. Pigeon. How was the no temperature checks evaluated and determined a good move with the Wayne Memorial team?
Again, we are using the screening questionnaire, and we are asking you to look at several variables to determine if it is safe for your child to attend school.
Thank you. Understanding that pre-K students do not have desks, how will they appropriately socially distance?
Yes, I'm sure that seems mind-boggling to some people, but the children will have an assigned area at a table not facing another student, where they will utilize the same tabletop surface and chair to do tabletop activities. Likewise, they will have a designated area where they could do floor work with an activity that has been properly handed out and previously cleaned. We will be cleaning our materials frequently throughout the course of the day and the week.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Will the school have disposable masks available in case children drop their masks on the ground or get them soiled, specifically from Evergreen? But I think good for everyone.
The answer is yes.
Thank you. Have there been server upgrades in terms of the infrastructure for our internet services, our network, and our bandwidth to be able to hold the burden of the virtual learning capacities? Our tech guys are doing everything in their power to make sure that things run smoothly and without a hitch. What is the recourse if service is down for maintenance or there are service outages? Obviously, if that's a school problem, then it will not be something that there will be any sort of repercussions or recourse for the students. If it's something that prevents long-term learning, that will be something that we will plan something real quick and communicate to the families. But we have a lot of faith in our tech team, and they're doing everything they can to make sure this runs smoothly. How would it be determined what days pre-K students would attend? By morning or afternoon sessions?
Perhaps not for Mr. Pigeon. I think, Mr. Pigeon, is that accurate for you or is that different?
Yeah, we based it on the AM PM idea and divvied the list up. Obviously, we're still going through enrollment packets that are coming in.
Yes, thank you.
These kind of fit together. Will attendance requirements be adjusted at all? And maybe not, they don't. Maybe I'm reading it too. I saw something I didn't mean to see. Will attendance requirements be adjusted at all?
Obviously, understanding that attendance, we need to be flexible with that this school year for multiple reasons, sicknesses or students who may have to quarantine. You know, we are being flexible with parents across the district.
And just to piggyback off of Mr. Pigeon, just communication is so important. If you just give us a call and, you know, tell us about your situation, we can obviously be flexible with that.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fitzsimmons and Mr. Pigeon. Some commented honor system in terms of filling out the questionnaire before school. Again, we are asking parents to fill out the questionnaire before they send their students to school, expecting there to be an honorable answer to that. If your child is homesick, they can participate via Google Classroom with the other kids. Just moved here from another state, not yet registered my child for pre-K. How can I participate in the survey? I would recommend calling the school or the district office to enroll your child immediately, and we can make sure that you are part of all of the communication regarding the survey. And welcome to Western Wayne, the greatest place on earth. Will staff be required to wear a mask? Yes. 3 learning pathways. You're very welcome. Everyone on this team, we want to make sure to give choices as much as possible and work with you. So on behalf of everyone here, go Wildcats. We're hitting a home run, and it's a pleasure to work with you all. And please reach out with any questions. Cleaning supplies, spray, wipes for RD appreciated by teachers, or are they supplied by the state? So parents asking, should they donate cleaning supplies for an RDW parent?
That is something that is on our supply list, which is posted on our website. If you wish to send in a gift to your classroom teacher, you are more than welcome to do so, but please know that we do have quite a little stash of cleaning and disinfecting supplies in our buildings.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Miller. Is the school board addressing the internet provision for children? I'm guessing that has to do with providing hotspots or Wi-Fi for those that don't have it. I'm thinking that that's what you mean, and that is something that we can certainly bring back to the table to our technology department and school board.
Follow up with your building administrator, and they will be in contact with Mr. Seaman.
Better answer, thank you. Will substitutes be trained to handle live streaming in the event that a teacher is absent? Absolutely, part of our professional development tour that we are planning. If we're uncomfortable with the protocol set for virtual, virtual learning is an option. Thank you for your comments, and we appreciate all of you. Have you included classroom teachers in the development of your plan and considered the input from them as you open classrooms?
I can speak to that. So the association has been a part of our planning sessions throughout this process as well. So a group of representatives have served on the subcommittees.
Thank you very much, Dr. LaRosa. Thank you for your kind words again. Next parent. Will kids that are in live class be able to be viewed by the households at home using the virtual learning and vice versa? Again, that will be part of our training with teachers, but we're looking at options. We're looking at options to address that. Will class supply lists be updated, or are they the same as last year? I heard packages cannot be open. If this is true, we are buying for multiple children at home.
Classroom supply lists from the Evergreen end are currently in the process of being updated. Some of them will not be. I will share them before school starts with the email blast that'll go out to parents. I'm not sure about the package piece not being opened. We are opening packages at Evergreen, and I believe at R.D. Wilson as well. Mrs. Miller, I don't want to speak for you, though.
Yes, I'm not sure about the packages, but the traditional school supply list is remaining the same.
Thank you, Mr. Pigeon and Mrs. Miller. Evergreen pre-K, if your child selects the virtual option, they will participate 2 days, full days a week virtually, plus the half day, if that makes any sense. So if it's not just virtual gets a half a day. If your child is scheduled to be in the AM pre-K and you want virtual, they will attend the 2 full days with their classmates virtually, plus that half day on Fridays virtually. Question about snow days. Unfortunately, we don't have definitive answers, but we would hate to see our technology and all of this virtual learning go by the wayside and not be used for good. But we will certainly, once those plans are ironed out, communicate with families. Excuse me. Will you be supplying more information about doing math on the devices? Maybe I'm just old school, but I can't see how well that works, especially the spring math was very difficult online. I have to give a shout out to Mr. Pigeon and Mrs. Miller, Mrs. Fitzsimmons, and Dr. LaRosa. They won't boast for themselves, but they had a lot of great foresight in purchasing the Eureka math series resources that are virtually available, because they are fully manipulatable by students on their devices. And that was the foresight they had to do. That was awesome. So the kids should have a much easier time manipulating the math and responding to the sheets in that virtual setting. And they can also, there's no wrong with a little handwritten, cheat sheet on the side and then answering, putting things in. So that should really help with that. And bravo to the elementary team for having the foresight. Maybe I missed it, but I haven't heard a definitive answer regarding whether we would be notified if someone in the building tests positive. We don't need to know who. Many parents do not feel safe sending their children if we will not be informed. Again, provisions through the CDC for those purposes will be forthcoming for notification if someone tests positive, how to handle that circumstance, and how to communicate it to families. And Wallen Paulpeck mentioned something about contact tracing, specimen tracing. That is not something that is done by the school district. Those are all things that are done by healthcare professionals. Starting the trigger for the chain of tracing starts with the practitioner who receives the positive diagnosis.
I can jump in there just for a second too. I'm going to contact Wallen Paulpeck because the teams of Wallen Paulpeck, Wayne Highlands, and Western Wayne work together on many of these issues. So I'm going to follow up with them to get a little bit more information about that. But thank you for sharing that with us.
And if I could just reiterate, we are tracking and assigning seating for students. We are monitoring which groups of students will be together, so that we will have all of that data available should we ever be contacted by the Department of Health, who would be responsible for leading something of that nature.
Thank you very much. Likely field trips will not happen, but are there plans for activities at the schools such as scouts, sports? At this time, everything in terms of non-school related activities are on hold, but stay tuned for information as that may change, and when and if it does, it will be communicated. Will there be school pictures? That's a to be determined. Mrs. Miller, do you have info?
Yes, no, it is to be determined. Tentative dates have been set, and our company, LifeTouch, has been making some safety adjustments and protocols. And so as soon as they're all set and they meet our requirements, we'll be notifying people of what will be happening.
Thank you very much. All students will be provided with devices regardless of whether or not they come to school in person or are a virtual learner. Can you put your own passwords in for Wi-Fi? Yes, when you're at your own home, you can enter your own Wi-Fi passwords so you can use your own network. Can high-risk students to virtual and in person? I think that's, maybe should say do virtual and in person. Again, we're asking you to commit to one or the other for the first 45 days.
If you have a child that is high risk, again, we would ask you to reach out to the building administrator. If they may have an IEP or a 504 for an existing physical or mental impairment. So I would just be interested in more information via a phone call to further discuss that.
Thank you, Dr. LaRosa. If we use Google Classroom, can our students use our home computers? The answer to that is yes. Google is a platform that's offered through the internet. So they would be able to log into their Google Classroom through any internet server on any device. The caution in terms of, we're not having students bring their own devices to school. If they're coming to brick and mortar, we ask that they bring the school provided device. And if you are using your own home device, we cannot offer district support in terms of tech support and troubleshooting with those devices because we don't have a working knowledge of them or have remote access to help you with those things. So if at all possible, we do encourage the use of the devices regardless of where the student will be using it so that we can offer help as much as possible. Clarification about data. Thank you, Joshua. I was hoping that you would clarify. Google monitors software regardless of the device, image, voice, and data. Does that fall under the media policy for in-school pictures taken? So the media release form, in-home network analytics, or communication security. I do know that we have in-house administrative rights to run the data through Google, but only the tech director and the director of the network have access to that. I do have access to that to run analytics and in terms of when students are logging in and those types of things. I do think that you mentioned about those third-party providers and having access to student data. I can definitely look into that and speak with our tech department. But I do know, and I'm speaking a little bit maybe kind of blank like it broadly here, but they are extremely concerned about having protection of our students, our network, and the access that they have and what others have to us. And I would be very surprised if they weren't on top of those things at all. But if you have specific questions, maybe if you'd like to reach out to me directly in an email or a phone call, and I can get you the answers that you need and answer your specific tech questions.
So Mrs. Watson, or Miss Watson, while you were responding to some of those, Mrs. Fitzsimmons jumped in and was able to respond to a couple of individuals. So yes, we are going to provide devices. There was a question about the internet band being reimbursable like last year. Again, if this is a concern for you, I would encourage you to share that information with your building administrator. They can follow up with the director of technology.
Dr. LaRosa, I also know that if you reach out to your providers such as Verizon or AT&T, they will work with you as well.
Thank you. And I can jump in, Ms. Watson, while you can catch your breath, and because you've been on a roll, I can speak about the screening questions again. We are asking every faculty, staff, student to go through the checklist prior to them leaving the house each day. So yes, we will be asking them to do that. If a child comes to school and they are complaining of some of those symptoms, again, the nurse will do an assessment and reach out to families to be able to follow up.
Thank you, Dr. LaRosa. Definite plans, again, today's definite plans are to go back in green. And as soon as those things change, we would be sure to inform families as soon as possible. Yes, students that are in Google Learning can still participate in sports so long as they are running. Thank you, Mrs. Fitzsimmons, for your contributions. Much appreciated. Thank you for the kind words. High-risk students was something that was addressed by Dr. LaRosa. Bandwidth was something that was addressed already. If the students will be doing so much virtually, how will basic skills such as handwriting, et cetera, be addressed? That is something that the teachers will be, they're very creative and they're extremely innovative in what they're teaching. And we have every faith in them that they will find the ways to cover everything that they need to for your kids, our kids. Do the kids have to wear a traditional mask or just a face covering? Absolutely, face coverings are fine. Gaiters, face masks, tie arounds, loop around your ears, bandanas, I don't know if I missed anything, but anything that's a face covering. Are children eating in the cafeteria or in the classroom? They will be eating in both on a rotating basis. I know that to be true for RDW. I believe that is the same for Evergreen.
Accurate.
Accurate. Thank you. Mandatory attendance for Carrie. Mandatory attendance is expected and is as mandatory as it would be during a normal school year, not during a pandemic. If the child is learning via Google, will they get school pictures done as well or no? I don't think we could deny any child. If one student's getting a picture, then we will find a way to have all students get pictures. And I think that's the end of the list.
Woo, did we do it? I think we got through them all. I just want to say, on behalf of everyone, thank you so much for everybody that participated. I had 250 people logged in and maybe some people that didn't meet the cut. So we will get this information out, and the biggest takeaway is communication and flexibility. So thank you all for taking time out of your night to participate, and we look forward to continued communication and conversations with you. So everybody have a great night.
Have a great night.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.